What's up, guys? All right, so I'm going to answer all the questions that were submitted last night. If you saw that on our page, we posted a submit your questions and John will answer them. So here we go. First off, I'll say welcome to my office. Normally, I record in my garage, but it is way too cold. So I think we're below 10 right now. So welcome to my office. Guys, we had a lot of good questions. I appreciate y'all submitting them. Appreciate the engagement, man. And I'm just happy to help in any way I can. So, if you got more, send them in. I'll be happy to answer them. But I picked 5, all right? I took the top 5 simply because I can't answer all of them tonight. And I live out in the country and our internet is terrible. And so I probably wouldn't be able to upload the video anyway. So maybe I'll answer a few more next week and we can do this regularly. But all right, so here we go. These are kind of all across the board too, which is great. First one, what are some tips for meal prepping? That's a great question. This is coming actually from a high school athlete, so I'll kind of direct it in that respect. First things I would say, buy in bulk. That's huge. Talk to your parents about that. If you don't have a Costco membership, get one. That's huge. I buy a half a cow probably 2 to 3 times a year. And so I have everything in a freezer. And that way, when I'm ready to cook on Sundays and Wednesdays, I just pull it out and boom, we're good to go. That's one. 2 would be just know your macros. Once you get your macros, it's really easy to plug and play. And that it takes a little commitment just on the first 2 or 3 weeks just to figure it out. But off the top of my head, I know my exact macros. I know how much half a cup of rice is, or 8 ounces of chicken or fish. And then you can just plug and play with the meals. So it's really easy if you know your macros. Number 3 is, I would say, if you need to do things quickly, just think of making your meals as very simple, a protein and a carb. Don't worry about anything else. Nothing needs to be fancy. You see all this stuff on social media about different recipes and all that, and that's cool. But real talk, I've eaten the same thing for 16 years. I get sick of it, but I don't eat it for flavor. I eat it because it's for function, right? So I would encourage you to just understand exactly what proteins are and what carbs are. You'll get fat throughout the day with it. So each meal have a protein and have a carb. Don't worry about anything else. So chicken, rice, ground beef, sweet potato, ground pork, white potatoes. It's that simple. So I'd say start there. Next one. What are the benefits of the morning and evening ruck? All right. So if you don't know what that's in reference to, because we post this on the ELP page, on my page, Farmer John ELP. I go for my rucks basically every day. The benefits of it, a couple. One, it was just a way to change up my cardio. I just got bored sitting on a bike, and quite frankly, I just realized it probably wasn't healthy. I was getting a good workout in, but I'm sitting under all this, artificial light. I'm playing on my phone, and I'm getting my cardio in, but just it didn't feel right. So the ruck got me outside, so gave me an outside workout. If you're familiar with 75 hard, that's where that comes from. Got my outside workout done. Gets me some morning sunlight. That's huge. We need the sunlight. And then I guess the other side of it is having the backpack on. Naturally, my back is one of my weakest points. For those of you who don't know, I had back surgery back when I was 18. It's still impacting my life today. But my back is one of my weakest points. So having that backpack with, 45, anywhere from 25 to 45 pounds on there, it just gives me a little bit of extra strength and general fitness type stuff. So that's why I do it. You don't have to ruck. If you want to do your cardio on a recumbent bike or a treadmill or something, cool. But I do the rucks because I feel like I get more out of it being outside. It's healthier not being under all that artificial light. I'm not on my phone, so I'm able to think. I'm able to just kind of plan, decompress. And quite frankly, other people aren't doing that shit. I am. I've been out and rucked every single day, and I haven't posted every day, but I've been out there. I've rucked every single day this week, and it's been, negative whatever this week. We've got 6 inches of ice here in Moscow, not snow, ice, and I've been out there, and nobody's doing that shit. So I know I'm winning. Real talk. So anyways, Good question. All right, next one. Why is it so important to integrate proper light intake along with GOTA and Evo Fit? Damn, that's a good question, bro. Because you'll be a badass. Like, I don't really know how else to answer that. Like, um, man, look, one of the things we talk about, one of our core values at ELP is to go above and beyond. And that means delivering things that are the best of the best. What you find at ELP, you're not going to find anywhere else. Like, because that's who we are and what we're about. And so when you combine all these different elements, then yeah, it is going to turn you into a badass. Like, because you have the best of the best in all these different types of systems and bringing them together. And there's nothing out there that can compete with that or compare with that. And so if you are integrating all these different facets, you find your weakness in GOTA, you find your weakness in the Evo Sport, you find your weakness in, you say, the light, but find your weakness in your health. Like, if you've listened to the podcast episode, my podcast, that Dr. Cruz and Carrie have talked about, what light does to the body, like artificial light. And so it blocks water absorption into your cells. And so just little things like that adds up. So the fact that you ask that question is awesome. Just understand, like, take each component to it, find the weakness and address it through that system, because that's what we have, pride ourselves on, bringing the systems down to you guys and helping ingrain and make it all incorporate as part of your life. So, the benefit is you're going to be doing stuff that nobody else around here is doing. Good question. All right, next one. What are the typical rep ranges and durations for altitude drops and rebounds? That's a really good question too. It all kind of depends on what you're training. I hate to give you that answer, but it depends on what your goal is. If you go back in the Verkhovshansky stuff, he talks about, I think, what is it, like no more than like 40 drops twice a week or something for drops. It also depends on kind of the landing height, as well as the positioning for what you're actually training. So you can use drops for recovery. You can use them for power. You can use them for strength. Like, there's different ways you can incorporate that. Rebounds, I would kind of say, is the same thing. Let me rephrase that. It's kind of the same thought process. Like, it kind of depends on what it is you're trying to train. But in essence, like with altitude drops, typically in my programs, I will go, if we're kind of in a phase of doing something like that, we're always including them, always, but maybe through a certain, progression or, microcycle, we're going to, emphasize a little bit more. I'll typically do anywhere between, 40 to maybe 80-ish a week. But then I'll also kind of throw in some other moves in the programming for the athletes, so they're still getting that type of benefit. I think sets and reps, personally, and it's going to piss a lot of people off, I think personally that's very overrated. I think sets, reps, things like that are very important when it comes to powerlifting and bodybuilding. But I think in athletics, it's important that we understand that where most systems fail, or actually all systems fail, is they fail at high volume, high speed, high intensity, right? Well, that's what sport and life is. And so I don't really give a shit about sets and reps as much as I care about, can you execute this to perfection? And when your perfection stops, then we pull it back. I hope that makes sense. So like if I'm doing altitude drops, you'll probably see me in a typical program, maybe like I said, 50, 60 a week, something like that off a box with some other ones thrown in there. If we're doing some rebounds, things like that, I may do something, I throw in bizarre stuff like 10 sets of 3 and like we go heavy as shit. But it's about the intent and can you manage that weight with perfection. Now, if you're learning, we don't do that. Obviously, we go lighter and you learn how to turn on and off. We'll bring in like the impulse, learn how to use the impulse. But then I also go really high too. So like I'll sometimes have people do like 150. I'll put them on the impulse as well, especially if I go that high rep. I like to put them on the impulse machine. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can incorporate it. I think I would encourage you to start looking at it almost from an auto-regulated standpoint, looking at maybe instead of a percentage drop off or something, you're looking at it in the sets and reps, maybe looking at it from the standpoint of we push the body with super high volume and intensity, right? And once we hit the breakdown, then we stop, right? Because practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And that's really important. Like, and it's cliche, but it's true. And so, like, because in sport, there is no 3 sets of 10, or it doesn't exist. And so, like, we just need to train the body to be able to react to what's there until it breaks down, then recover and go again and go harder through that, super compensation cycle. So that's a really good question. I hope I answered that the right way. Hit me up if you want some more detail, but I think that probably got you. All right, the next one was really long. And guys, a few of these, if you're wondering where they're coming from, a lot of these are coming from our podcast, from the podcast. If you don't know, the Starting Block podcast, I started that about a year ago. My co-host Chris, he's on there as well. But we put out an episode a couple days ago about isos and rebounds, and so I think a lot of questions are coming from that. But yeah, this is a reference to that episode. So, should you shoot for combined 5 minutes? Or I've seen articles that say shoot for combined 5 minutes with each lunge daily. What's more important, performing several iso extreme lunges for perhaps 90 seconds each to get to 5 minutes, or performing 1 or 2 lunges that are more unstable, shaking a lot for 2+ minutes to accumulate the 5 minutes? Do you welcome having your legs shake as you attempt to hold the position? Hell yeah, I do. Are you trying to pull further into the range of motion, or do you want to limit the shaking? Okay, so that's a really loaded question, but good question. So let me think for a second, because I'm kind of looking at these just right now. I'm kind of giving you off the top of my head. All right, so we need to understand why we're doing them, okay? A couple of different things. You can do them, the training impact can be, you can train the properties and qualities that you want. So you clearly listened to the last podcast episode, and one of the things I talked about was utilizing iso extremes to work the aerobic system, okay? So how would we do that? Well, we're clearly going to want to push into that 5-minute threshold, if not longer. So you have that. But now let's say we have an athlete who maybe is not necessarily, or not even an athlete, just an individual who's not really an aerobic type of athlete. Think of a baseball player, a golfer, something like that, right? Where it's just short, quick bursts and then rest. So, like, is 5 minutes appropriate for them? Sure, there could be a time and place, absolutely. But I may want to train them to be able to just recruit as much muscle as possible in 10 seconds, because absolute strength is going to happen between 0 to 10 seconds, with that 5-second mark going to be the dividing between whether you're a strength or speed dominant athlete. That's a different conversation. But I'll program up to 10 seconds at a time, maybe 15, because when you work different brackets, that trains different qualities. You can dig in some InnoSport stuff if you're curious about that. So what's more important? Well, if you look at the work of Dr. Spina talks about, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, I believe this is where it comes from, but if I recall through one of the courses, I've gone through the FRA, the FRC, Kinstretch, one of the courses, I believe, one of the things he talked about was that on the cellular level, there's some things that really happen at 3 to 5 minutes. Essentially, short story, from my interpretation of it, that 3 to 5 minute threshold actually allows the nervous system to understand something is happening and it can adapt to it in the long run. Now, obviously, if something happens, the body will react, so the nervous system knows, but we got to be able to teach it. We got to be able to reinforce it. And this is why stretching doesn't work, because static stretching does not provide enough time and enough stimulus for the nervous system to learn something and re-educate. It's going to go right back to the properties that it knows, particularly when it comes to isometrics, because we only have about this 15-degree window here. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that when you start getting into the 3 and 5 minute thresholds, there's the mental component to it, there's the training component to it, but then there's also like the tissue remodeling component to it, right? Or the body changing how it actually operates and lengthening things out. So that's kind of that realm. As far as, is it more important to do sets of 90 seconds up until you get to 5 minutes? I think the short answer is yes. Like, I prefer, if you heard the last question, we have to maintain perfect position because any deviation in that starts a new myelination process. And myelin, all right, if you don't know, myelin is like the insulation around a nerve fiber, and that's why perfect practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't. So if we are breaking into position, we are creating new neural pathways that we don't want to exist, and we're going to actually start to myelinate those pathways. That's not what we want. And so, like, that's your argument against 3 to 5 minutes, right? So when we're looking at something more like 90 seconds, then yeah, we want to recruit maximally as hard as we can and try to build up to that 3 to 5 minute range. That's a very efficient way to do it. Absolutely. Now, if I'm putting these in a program for somebody, like, is that always my goal is 5 minutes? No, not necessarily. That's what I was saying earlier. I'll program sometimes 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 15, 20, 30. It kind of depends on where the athlete, what we're trying to accomplish. But I think the answer to the question, because like I said, it's a very loaded question, is I like to go more high intensity, short term, and push the body, hit it at an intensity level where it fails quick. And so like that, the leg shaking, that's huge. You want that to occur with as long as you're not breaking position. Because one of the things people don't realize is that when we lift weights, like, our body doesn't allow us to recruit all of the muscle fiber. We're maybe recruiting 50%, even on a max lift. Maybe it's up to 60 or 70. I don't remember. It's somewhere right around the range. It's not all of it though. All right. We're not recruiting all of the muscle fiber. And so there is another, as a side note, one reason why lifting is kind of ancient and prehistoric for athletes, because you're not even recruiting the amount of muscle you need, which you need all your muscle on the field. So anyways, isometrics, when they're done the right way and that shaking occurs, you are now starting to recruit muscle fibers that you have not recruited before. And so as you start to fatigue and fail, not break position, fail as in sink deeper, deeper, deeper is how I look at it, you're going to notice that things start to shake. And that is actually your body's recruitment of new muscle fiber that you've never reached before. You may be the strongest person in the world. Put a power lifter into an iso extreme lunge and see how long it takes before they start shaking. It's not going to be very long. Now, they may be strong as shit, but they haven't learned how to recruit as much muscle as we can. They've just learned to be able to strengthen the amount of muscle they need to recruit to execute that lift, which is why lifting is a very inefficient activity for athletes. And that's why everybody keeps getting hurt. But that's a whole other conversation. That's a really good question too, guys. Y'all sent me some really good questions. I wanted this thing to be like 10 minutes long. This is a 20-minute video already. So I appreciate all the questions. I hope I helped you there. And if I didn't, or you want some clarification, shoot us a DM again, and I'll be more than happy to do this for you guys. I appreciate it. As I said in that last podcast episode, information is meant to be shared, right? And so I am more than happy to pass on anything that I've learned from all my mentors. You guys know who you are. And if I can help you as a coach, an athlete, a parent, I'm more than happy to. So yeah, let me know what we can do to help you. I appreciate you guys, and look forward to being back at work on Monday, hopefully. So take care.